Ladies and gentlemen, it is a very, very great honour, and without wishing to blow smoke, one of my all-time favourite Ipswich Town players, Marcus Stewart, in the flesh. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thanks, Ben. Yeah, all good.
Um,
Good.
so you're back in Bristol doing the
Yep.
assistant manager gig. Did you always think you'd end up? Always seems to be your favourite part of the country, doesn't it? Always seem to end up back that way. Is it your favourite place to live?
Well, obviously, I was brought up here, so yeah. I mean, I know the city quite well. It's a great place to live. I obviously moved away for about 10 years before I came back. Um, in football, you never know where you're going to end up. That was the case as when I played, and I'm sure as a coach now, I've been a coach for God, almost as long as I've uh, played for, I think. So since I was 32, so I'm now 45. So as it happens, my coaching career took me to Exeter, and now I'm back into Bristol. So at the club I first started at, but like I said, football's football. If you want to go on and do well, you got to be prepared to move around one day, and I'm sure that will happen in the future. But Bristol, I love. Yeah, I love. Great
Um,
place.
for the uninitiated, I mean, I just sit in the stands. Day to day, what does an assistant manager do? Are you on the training field or are you in the office?
Bit of both, really. I mean, we're getting quite early, so you know, luckily these days you can do a lot of work from home in terms of watching games and that sort of thing with the internet and different bits of software you can download to watch games, players. So I tend to do that sometimes in the office, sometimes at home. A lot of planning, organisation goes on. If you're having a staff meeting, you might come up with an idea that someone hasn't come up with, and those sort of things. Disagreeing, agreeing with the manager. It's all those sorts of things really. And you are an assistant. The manager makes the decisions. I'm there to help him in terms of organisation, not just on the pitch, off it as well. As Mick will probably tell you, there's a lot of things that have to go on, and I probably only see or know about 20% of what goes on with the manager behind the scenes. So I'm just there to help him when I can.
Um, do you
And my role's a lot of coaching.
do
So
you particularly do striker stuff? And what I wanted to ask you as well is, you know how quickly the game moves.
mm.
Obviously, your prime was nearly 20 years ago now. When you're coaching strikers, does what you did still work nowadays? Do you know what I'm saying?
um, you got to be. I think you have to coach a striker, and work with his DNA and what type of striker he is. I think every striker gets goals in different ways. I'll give you an example. For me, Alan Shearer got his goals in different ways. I got my goals. He like to be fair, I like crosses in the box as well, and I like headed goals. But I think Alan Shearer has scored more long distance goals than I could. Um, that was the way it was. I mean, and that's the way it is. And I think every striker that comes to our club, whether they're young, experienced, I like to think, especially the experienced lads, are open minded. I've got some different ideas, new ideas that hopefully they listen to, and I try to sell it to them really. And it's the same with young lads, getting them to good habits because when a young lad comes to our club, all I want them to do is trying to get into good habits and teach the right technique. And if I feel they've got the knowledge and and the ability to listen, whether it's watching or showing them, then they've got a real chance. But whatever player comes to this club, whether he's a defender or a striker or a midfield player, it's a learning environment, I would say. Sometimes, it's like a bit like a teacher's classroom in terms of when you're showing them stuff. And sometimes it can be a bit ruthless out on a training pitch. So it's about knowing what players you've got and what they're capable of achieving.
I was a pretty bad footballer at school, but I always found it easiest if I was playing centre half because I could see everything. With that in
Mm.
mind, is it actually harder for a striker to become a coach? Bearing in mind your experience of hundreds of games was from, do you know what I'm saying? From seeing it from your view of the game would be very different as a forward. Is it more difficult for strikers to go through that way?
Um, yeah, I think it's difficult in terms of, you're right, the game has been. I do see the game differently. I'm looking back at our goalkeeper instead of looking at their
Yeah,
goalkeeper a
right.
lot.
Yeah,
You know, but I felt like I had quite a good football brain. I could work things out, and I felt like, and I still feel like now I could play almost any position on the pitch in terms of knowledge wise. Physical attributes might let me down if I played in goal or centre half, but that's part of. I think that was part of my strength. Really, I was quite good at working things out. Later on in my career, when I left Ipswich, I played centre midfield. I played. I didn't play. I never played at the back actually in any one of the four positions at the back. I played on the wing. So I got my ideas on how I think a defender should defend, a fullback should defend, attack, and a midfielder defend and attack. So we all have our ideas. Not everyone thinks the same. Mick was a centre half back in his day, but I'm sure he has his ideas. Well, I know he does for a fact. How he didn't like strikers playing against him, so that he would put them ideas across to strikers because he didn't like it. So although we're all used to, when we're playing facing one certain direction, especially centre halves and strikers, especially if you're a midfielder, you got to get used to both. We all have an input, an idea on how we think each position, unit, team should play.
So some of our listeners, sadly, are never going to have seen you play. Some of our younger listeners. If you could describe yourself as a player to our younger listeners, how would you describe yourself?
I was probably a lot quicker in my mind than I was in my pace. That's what I would say, and I was quite clever in my movement, which would get me that extra 2 or 3 yards that raw pace might have got a lot of other people.
Great stuff. Right, can we go back to the good old days at Ipswich then? People are going to love to hear this. So, obviously, I don't want to ignore all what you did before you came to Ipswich. So, just quickly, started at Bristol Rovers through to 96, moved to Huddersfield, and then you got to the Championship level, and it was 11 goals in the first season, 16. So the season before you came to Ipswich, 26 goals in the second tier for Huddersfield, who were always sort of 8th to, that sort of position in the table. So you scored 26 goals and finished 10th. So at the start of 99-2000, is there any possible thought in your head that you're going to end the season somewhere other than Huddersfield?
No, I mean, no, there wasn't. I started the season quite well. We started off okay. When I left, we were doing okay as well. At Huddersfield Town, I'm on about at the moment. So no, I mean, there is always, like I said before, there's always a possibility that you're going to move on in football, and sometimes it's more obvious than not. So it was very unexpected, I must admit, when it happened. So yeah, I had another 2 or 3 years on my contract at Huddersfield, so I wasn't playing up. I wasn't demanding I leave the club because there was other people interested in me, other clubs interested in me. So no, I mean, in my mind, I was quite happy where I was. It was great. I had 2 or 3 years contract left. But like in football, nothing never surprises you, and I wasn't surprised, if I'm honest with you, when I got. Well, I sat down and thought about it really after the call. Well, the call from Steve Bruce came in to say I could go speak to Ipswich. So I was a bit shocked at the time, but looking back now, being more experienced, I shouldn't be shocked by things like that happening.
So that year, you'd already got 12 goals, and I remember it was a nice partnership with Weinhardt up front as well. He was a good player as well. How does this work? Explain to us. So you're playing for Huddersfield. I assume you have an agent or a lawyer. What actually happens when Ipswich want to come and sign you, and what was the process to get there?
Well, I had a agent who is my financial advisor, who's a good guy. Um, by the way, young lads listening that are going to be footballers, make sure you get someone that you can trust when you're young. If you're going to get an agent, because a lot of them are good, but there's one or two bad as well. So make sure you get the right guy. And I'm still with him now. He's still a great guy. I trust him impeccably. So that was from the age of 18 till now I'm 45. So he's my agent anymore. I don't need one. But he's a good friend and he looks after me financially. So make sure you pick the right guy, chaps. On a separate story note, I got a phone call. Generally, sometimes if you want to go, you might push it with the manager, with the agent and the manager, or agent types your name around, which is the wrong thing to do, I think, unless both clubs are happy with that. But as this happened, literally I came to training one morning. I forget what morning it was, and Steve Bruce called me into his office. I was just got changed into my training gear, and said I could. Ipswich are interested with you, and if we've accepted an offer, you're more than welcome to go down and speak to them. And it was literally as blunt and as quick as that. And I went, all right, okay. And I walked out the porter cabin office at the time, and that was it. And I went and called my agent at the time, and from then onwards, we had a conversation, and I was down on the road within 2 hours, probably.
So I suppose
That phone call.
it's quite a good spot to be if you're not bothered about going somewhere. I suppose you just turn up and
No,
listen
I
to
wasn't.
listen to what they've got to say. Yeah,
I wasn't. No, and you're right. You have to have that mindset that you're prepared to move around the country to achieve your goal. Um, Unless you're very lucky to stay at one club all your life and you achieve that, but very rarely does that happen unless you're at Man United or Man City as it stands, or Chelsea. So, and generally those young lads get moved on anyway. So, yeah, and I felt Ipswich had a good chance of getting into the playoffs, having not got into the playoff final the previous 2 years. I felt like I genuinely felt that I could make a difference.
actually, the club record signing at the time does stuff like that bother you in a good
No,
way, or about just
no,
not
I
interested
was
at
pretty
all?
lucky like that. I mean, I'm sure it might bother one or two people, but I didn't look at it like that. I just got my head down and didn't really let. I suppose it was a bit of a strength of mine. I didn't really let a lot of things affect me, if I'm honest with you.
So the same sort of thing. Obviously, Ipswich had a really good striker there already, David Johnson, who'd was
Mm.
always up with yourself and Phillips at the top of the scoring chart. When you're coming in, do you kind of think, right, am I going up against this guy? Am I going to play with him? What was the feeling being there was already someone there doing what you were doing at Huddersfield?
You know that you're going to be up against him. I think someone like Jono, who I thought played off a big man, a bit like I did, really, with obviously James Scowcroft and Richard Naylor, who were there at the time. So I thought that wasn't naive enough to think that me and Jono would be going for one spot, and I think generally to start with he was the one who was ahead of me. But saying that, George did play me out on the left in those three up front at times. I remember one game particularly against Norwich when that happened. It didn't go too well at home at Portman Road. So yeah, it's you accept that. You know you're not going to be the only striker at any club. You know that you're not. You've got to earn your right to play in the games. It's that simple, really. We're in a professional environment, and you're going to be up against someone. But ultimately, you're teammates, and you have to support each other. And John Oscoe, and Richard Naylor got on really well with each other. So
Good for, good for. So you make your debut at Barnsley. Scowcroft gives Ipswich the lead, and you're put through at 2-0. And we get to see, I don't know what you call this move. So you go in on the keeper as if to side foot it in one corner, wrap your foot around it, and lay the keeper down and go around the other side. When you're going through,
mm.
What I'm trying to get at is, are you waiting for the keeper to do something, or as you're going through, are you like, right, I know exactly what I'm going to do, or do you just do it off the cuff? Because that move, and we're going to talk about another even more staggering goal than that one. That move looked pre-rehearsed, but what's the thought process when you're going through with that?
I think I never ever done training. I never when I that's an instinctive move. There's no doubt about that. That's just recognizing where the space is around the keeper. Um, so in terms of training schedules when I was playing, that was never worked on. 20, 30 times a week. I think you have to have a vision, an instinct to know where the space is. As it happened, I scored a lot of goals doing that, but that wasn't on purpose. That wasn't premeditated. That was just instinct at that time.
Wow. I always thought when you were going through, it was right. I know what I'm going to do here, but
well, I'm obviously know what I'm going to do, but I don't prepare for it
no.
until that moment in time. There's a lot of things going on in your mind when you've got 3 or 4 seconds to size the keeper up, size the space up. A lot of things. I'd rather have a shot on goal when it's instinctive because you haven't got a lot of time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Second game obviously ends up against Huddersfield. How were your old teammates? Was there any negative feeling towards you as I don't know, like deserting them or something?
I think there's more negative feeling from the staff, the management, I'd say, than there was players. But I don't. No staff member said that to me. But players wise, no, they were my mates. I'd been with most of them for a couple of years, so I got to know them quite well. So there's always rivalries in football, but before and after, your mates, not with all of them, of course, but you always get one or two mates from one club. Stay in touch with them. So no, there was no angry or ill feeling at all. No.
When you put that goal in, you looked really, really chuffed. And one of my pet hates in football now is this business of not celebrating when you score against your former team. I always find it a bit patronising. It's like, well, okay, you've gone now. It's your job. What's your view on not celebrating?
I think it's just a trend, and I think footballers sometimes get sucked into what other footballers do instead of doing what they think the right thing is. And at that time, my emotions were, I'm glad I scored for Ipswich, and I'm glad I scored against my old club. I know I had good times there, but it was all about now. That was back in the past. Now it's for me getting off to a good start at my new football club who are employing me. So the fans are watching me. So why? I mean, I didn't think this at the time, but why would you not celebrate? To entertain your fans and please the previous fans. I don't get that. You're there to do a job. That's it, really, and I'm happy. I'm happy when I score most goals.
Absolutely. Burley keeps taking you off as the season kind of plays out as we go towards the I'd looked it up today. You only did a full 90 minutes before we get to the playoffs. Were you fully fit then? Was there any kind of injury stuff?
I'm trying to think. Do you know what? I got an injury in one game. I was out for a few weeks with my ankle. I'm sure it was. I'm just trying to think when it was. I got off to a half decent start. Huddersfield, Barnsley, a couple of other games. Then I got injured for a little while. Then I got back towards the end of the season, and he kept bringing me off. But I was struggling for fitness in terms of being physically fit, being able to run. And eventually. I got up and running again a bit, really, and I don't remember the times you took me off, so I can't.
No, I was surprised. I kept looking today, and it was 67 off. 75 off.
Yeah, I think when you're out injured for a little while, it takes you a little while to get back up to full speed. So I can only assume that's why. And obviously, there's been one or two times when I was. Played pretty rubbish, so you deserve to be taken off. And I'm sure there was one or two times when, the 90 minutes were catching up with me a bit.
Okay, right. So it's hard to do this next game without blowing smoke, but I've seen many Ipswich games, and we get to this playoff semi-final Sunday, 14th of May, away at Bolton. 3 years we've lost in a row, and obviously you've been brought in now to make the difference. Johnson goes off, Mowbray goes off, and Bolton scored twice in 26 minutes. And then what the hell were you on for the rest of that game?
Yeah, it's
Did you look back at it and think that was me?
no, I do look back at it. Of course, I do. Not every day, but I do. And what do I think? I think leading up to that game, I understood what had to be achieved. We had to get to the final because we hadn't done that before. We had to get to the final because the previous 2 years we didn't. Just to at least give the fans a day out. As happens, we won it, as you know. So I knew there was a lot. I didn't feel pressure, but that was the only time leading up to those 2 games that I realised that we have to achieve something this year. That's what I felt, and I felt we had a chance of doing that. Once the game started, did Jono come off injured? Did he?
Yeah.
For that game, I know he came off for the final. I don't remember the semi-final, first leg. He came off injured first leg, did he?
Yeah. There was. Yeah. We were like, I cannot believe this.
Who came on for him? I don't remember, top of my head.
I know Rusa finished. I don't know, Marcus.
I'm not on about the final now.
No. The semi-final away leg. Yeah. I just remember the picture of Burley, and it's 2-0, and Mowbray and Johnson are both sat behind him before you score the first goal, and it's like.
Yeah, I don't remember. I have to look who came on. I'm not sure, but I would have thought it'd been Richard Naylor, but he could have gone centre half with Tony. So. Might have been Scully up front. I'm not sure. I need to have a look. I don't remember. But I just remember we went 2-0 down. I think Ida Johnson might have scored a couple or one at least.
Holdsworth and Good Johnson, yeah.
And Holdsworth scored the other one, was it? And then it changed. I got a goal, a long distance goal, from little touch from Mate before pass, and then I had a chance to get a second goal, a sitter. I missed it, put it over the bar, and then I scored the one to make it 2 each, which was a great, I don't remember a lot about it, and I've watched that video, not that goal back, but I've watched that goal back a couple of times, and the guy's head was about 2 millimeters from touching the ball before it went in the corner. You talk about the fine lines of football. If you watch that back in slow motion,
there's a beautiful angle from behind you, just
behind,
as you're
behind the post, almost in line with the post where he stuck his head out. If he had an inch of a longer neck and he gets a touch on that ball and it goes wide, it's that close. So yeah, and then we obviously went into the second leg and we were in with a right chance. But to go 2-0 down that game at Bolton and get a draw and maybe should have won that game. As I remember, the second half was a lot different than the first half. You take a draw anyway. We were just disappointed to come back with a draw, I think.
I think you're being rather modest about that. There was a bit of a sense that it was you who'd kind of pulled us through. We've debated this a million times. Can you just settle it? Which is the better goal?
Oh, God. In terms of timing, it had to be the first one because we needed to get a goal to get us back in the game. The next goal counts. They get the third goal. You're almost out of the tie. We get the third goal and we're back in it, and that's how it was. So I think that was the most important goal in terms of on the eye, and
there's something crazy about that second goal, isn't there?
Yeah, emotional. I think that was that's the one that got us back and put the hope back into everyone again. We had hope obviously getting that first goal, but that was when we really thought we had a real chance to take a good result back to Portman Road.
And for the same player though to score those 2 goals in the same game, such different types of goals as well. It was.
I mean, it's the timing, of course. In the semi-final, they both made a difference in their own way, and I think they're both. They were both pretty good goals in their own way, but 2 totally different goals, as you know. I
don't really know how to deal with the second match because it was so ridiculous. So 5-3 behind 3 times, 3 penalties, 3 red cards, extra time. Was there a sense on the pitch that Bolton had lost it? Because they really just it went insane, didn't it? After just before half time, when you get taken down for, I think it was Richie just like virtually rugby tackles you for one of the penalties, and he sides you down in the first half. So did you sense that this wasn't a normal football match?
Listen, I remember the emotions. I remember the intensity of it. I remember um, Tony Mowbray flicking the ball on for Jimmy Jilton to get the winner. That and Jimmy Jilton getting a hat trick. Wow, I don't think he's ever got a hat trick before or since that game. What time to pull it out? So no, you know what? I remember clippings of the game. I've never watched the game back. Never. I've watched the moments back now and again, but never watched the game. I didn't remember if it was me. Was it me that got the penalty?
I think you got taken down for 2. Yeah.
Right. I don't remember that.
There's one he literally throws. It's ridiculous. I don't think, and he's about a foot taller than you. It's Richie. Do you remember the Scotland centre half?
Yeah.
Yeah, he literally throws you over for the. They can.
Yeah, there's only snippets of the game I remember. I haven't watched it back since. But that goal when Jim got his hat trick goal, that was it. Did Jamie Clapham score as well that night?
They took Majuton off penalties in the end because he missed one and scored one. So he put and then Russo scored the breakaway right at the end for.
Yeah. It was a great night. I remember in the end winning it comfortably, but up until that moment, the game was in the balance really.
Yeah. So how did you feel? Had you? I forgive my lack of research. Had you ever been to Wembley before as a player? And
yeah. I lost in a I lost in the final there before, but I played for England in the 15s as well, and won. So I had a mixed kind of bag of results, if I'm honest. Whenever I went there.
So obviously we all know what happened at Wembley, and you talk about pleasing on the eye. The goal you scored was just beautiful, wasn't it? The layoff and the move to the near post and heading it in the far post. Did that one stick in your mind more than the semi-final? Did you get a chance to enjoy the Wembley day?
Yeah, of course. I mean, and they're all as good as each other, I would say. But yeah, God, yeah. And I think Jono came off injured that game.
He did. I think he was a bit hyped up, and he went for a silly kind of tried to jump and land on his back. I remember.
That's right. And Richard Naylor came on, and me and Richard Naylor had a really good understanding and knowledge of each other's games. So, we knew that we were going to a partnership that was as strong as me and Jono, really. So there was no kind of negative feeling about the sub coming on amongst anyone, and I think it proved in the game. Really, we had as soon as I went to the club, Richard was clever, bright. He wasn't your normal target player who was just flicked the ball on and that was it. He had a decent awareness and football brain and knowledge and understanding of his own game and other people's. So we were on the same wavelength. And I think that was a telling moment in the game, if I'm honest.
It says on Soccer Base that you're 5'8". How did you?
No, 5'10.5".
Is that true?
Yeah.
Sorry, Soccer Base.
5'8". Wow.
Yeah, I'm 5'8". I'm not an athlete though. How did you score so many headers?
I think timing. That's it, really. Timing and timing of your run, knowing the person who's going to cross the ball into the net, into the box. What type of cross they got, and it's gambling a lot of times. I must have made those types of runs 5-6 times in a game and not got the end of a cross, and it's just going into the areas where you think is going to make a difference. And generally with Mark Venus, Jamie Clapham, Gary Croft, not so much Martin Russo. Martin Russo was about little threaded balls, jinky runs more so than crossing the ball in the net. I kind of knew that those type of players would we had a connection, so we were on the same wavelength with 2 players with one plan, I suppose.
So at this time, before you did what you did in the Premier League, it was always talked about the gulf, and teams that went up were basically destined to come straight back down. Honestly, what were your expectations for the team before you went into the Premier League? And did you? How many did you think that you would score realistically before it
I don't
started?
know. I don't know. It was the unknown for me, really, and I think it was the unknown for every player that was there in our team. I don't think any one of them has played in the Premier League before. Um, so it was the unknown. So we were all hungry, that's for sure, to try and prove what we could do at the highest level, which is somewhere I wanted to be. That's why I went from Huddersfield to Ipswich. That's why I went from Bristol Rovers to Huddersfield. That's why I went from Huddersfield to Ipswich. That's why I went to Ipswich, because I wanted to play in the Premier League. So it was an unknown league for me. And I wanted to prove myself, and like everyone else did, and I think that's why we've done so well.
Season starts sort of slowly. You don't score
Sub.
you don't score until the fifth, the 90th minute of the fifth game, actually. But from then on, it's ridiculous. You won 11 and drew 2 of the next 16. How did I? It's just an outlier in football. How did this happen? Because so many other teams couldn't win in the Championship and then win in the Premier League. What do you put it down to?
We had a good team spirit. Like I said, I think we had a lot of lads that were hungry and wanted to prove themselves in the Premier League. And we genuinely had like good quality in amongst the team. So all that's a good recipe for success. Team spirit and hunger, especially amongst players, is really important, and that's what we had.
So from Boxing Day, for you personally, it goes really crazy because you scored in 7 straight games. So I remember Football Focus was doing it, national newspapers. You had 17 goals by January 20th in that season. What was life like when you're the top striker in the Premier League?
Oh God, nothing like I've known it since. Yeah, I remember a lot of media attention, from being on Soccer AM to jumpers with goalposts. So no, it's different. Is it something I want to do again? Of course, I want to be in the Premier League, but in terms of all the palaver that goes with it, it doesn't bother me. You know, it's nice to experience it back then, and it's different to what I've experienced since then and before. But I'm a bit wiser nowadays. But it was great. There were great times, and I don't regret any of it. There wasn't many places you could go as well without being recognised, I must admit. But as a footballer, you soon forgot about. That's how it is. You are. That's the way it is, and you got to accept that, because there's always someone else coming up through that's bigger, better, stronger, statistically better than you. That's the way it is, and you got to understand your role as you get older. And my role, as it stands now, is a coach. So someone else's time at some point in Ipswich's career, in Ipswich's history, to do what that team done. Don't know when, but it will happen again.
There's one more game I wanted to talk about in that season. So it's April the 2nd, away at Southampton on Sky. I think Ipswich were going to go either 3rd or 4th if you won. So you score in the first half, brilliant team move, brilliant glancing header for the second goal. I want to talk about the third goal though, the Panenka penalty. You mentioned about being an entertainer earlier in the interview. This type of penalty. First of all, what happens if you miss? And do you, as a sportsman, do you actually care about this? I actually want to entertain these guys. I'm going to do something fun with this.
No, I don't. No, I don't do it for that reason. Do you know what? It's a really good question, because today, with the strikers, we're having a bit of extra for half an hour, 40 minutes, and we spoke about, the difference between being casual and calm. Casual is kind of frowned upon, and calmness is not. So we spoke about penalties that are chipped. Keeper stands there. That's casual, but if he doesn't stand there, he dives to the left or right, and it goes in. It's a calm finish. So it's such a fine line. But then I explained to them why I done it, because they asked me, did I ever chip the ball down the middle of the net? And I went, yeah, I did 3 times in my career. And I explained why. And the reason why I said was because it's not for entertainment. I didn't say that to them, but that's the question you asked me. It's not for entertainment. It's for the next penalty. Because the keeper is going to probably stand still and think I'm going to chip it, but I'm going to put it in one of the corners. So it's always about keeping the keeper guessing for me, because I was quite a regular penalty taker in my career. I always want to keep people guessing, especially goalies. So if I was to chip the ball down the middle once every 5 penalties I had, generally the keeper's going to stand there and he's going to make you look stupid. But I only done it 3 times in my whole career. So my reason was behind it, and luckily it was calm and it's the right decision to do, was to score a goal.
Would you have done it at
in
0-0
any way,
like that?
I have, yes, at Wolves.
Oh, okay.
For Huddersfield, it was 0-0 at Wolves, and I scored a chip one down the middle, and we won 1-0. And the keeper dived. So, it's not to take the mick out of the keeper. It's not to make the keeper look stupid. It's not to look good and cool. It's not to entertain people. It's there. I've done it because I genuinely thought I could get a goal because the keeper's going to dive one or the other way. That's how I looked at it.
Brilliant. I love it.
And if it looks entertaining in the meanwhile, brilliant. I'm glad everyone's happy.
Someone who was entertained by this penalty was Sven-Goran Eriksson, the England manager, who was at the game. Marcus, the list of forwards that got capped ahead of you that year: Andy Cole, Michael Owen, Emil Heskey, Teddy Sheringham, Kevin Phillips, Robbie Fowler, and Michael Ricketts and Darius Vassell. Well, I don't need to ask the question. Did you deserve a go? Michael Ricketts,
capped by England. But listen, at that time, was I disappointed? No.
he watched you score a hat trick.
I know, great, isn't it? But no, did it affect my game? No. Did it affect my mentality? No. It is what it is. I'm an England fan. I still love England. I watch England. I didn't get the chance. So what? That's where I am.
Season finishes 5th in the table. Amazing. Burley's manager of the year. You're second in the top scorers charts behind Hasselbank, and top scoring English player by 3 goals as well. Owen got 16. You got 19. Just quickly, can you reflect on that season and what you did personally?
God, we achieved so much. We were unexpected to achieve a lot. And I achieved it with some really good players and really good lads. So we will never forget, if I'm honest with you, the camaraderie we had, team spirit, and the amount of results we got for that club. It was great. Yeah, I'll never forget it.
Let's not go into too much detail about the next season, as Ipswich end up getting relegated. So you have Scowcroft and Wright going out, and then this shopping list here: Sereni, Bent, Fanidi, Le Pen, Gardso, Miller, Peralta, Marshall, Kenyago, Carrick. There's UEFA Cup football on Thursdays. The North Stand gets closed for to be built up. What went wrong, or is it a mixture of all of those things?
Everyone's got their own opinions. I mean, there was a lot of players that came in, a lot of different nationalities that we had to try and get together. So it was I think it was a learning curve for everyone. The club had to move, had to evolve, had to be seen to be getting players in, because that's the way it is every year. You have to move the club forward with transfers. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. That's the way it is. And I think people, obviously, other teams done their homework on us as well.
And you specifically?
I mean, of course they did. If they're top players, they should do. You can't blame the recruitment policy, because you have to sometimes look outside the box, and I think that's what we did. But maybe we've done it a bit too much.
Okay. Some fun.
What I mean by that is we went a bit more foreign, away from British players, and got a few foreign lads in. So great. Obviously, Herman Horizon, who was great. Sixto, Pablo, they were all good lads. But to try and maybe get them together
all at once.
Matteo Sereni, of course, who's an Italian lad. So to get them all together all at once, for one season, I don't know. Was that too much? I don't know. And it wouldn't have just been that. There would have been a lot of other things that that were a factor.
There was some fun, obviously, for us fans with the European run. So you actually scored in Moscow against Torpedo, and you'll tell me now that it's not for entertainment's sake, but a silly chip against Helsingborg. That was calm and not casual, wasn't it? You missed out on the Inter game, though. You're out for a couple of months, actually, which probably, it goes into my question. How did you feel? I don't want to push it too much, not getting to play at the San Siro. And how did it negatively affect Ipswich's chances when you disappeared for 2 months with that injury?
How do I feel? Yeah, I was a bit gutted, if I'm honest. I went out there with the team knowing that I couldn't play, but I was allowed to train non-contact at the time because my jaw wasn't still quite right, but I could get involved in the team as long as no one could tackle me and stuff like that. So the coaches will put me in positions where that couldn't happen. So it was nice to actually train on the San Siro, but didn't play there. Pleased for the lads because they've done great at home. I think Alan Armstrong got the goal at home, and then he got the only goal away from home. So yeah, but that's part of being a footballer again as well. You know, you got to get over disappointments. You know, whether it's for injury and you're out for 2 months, whether it's being dropped, whether it's not playing against a certain team, whether it's giving the ball away and getting it back. The disappointments every 10 seconds in football, every 2 weeks, and that was just one of them at that time, and I had to deal with that and get behind the players and be as positive as I could. So yeah, it was one of those things I can't do nothing about apart from be supportive towards everyone, really.
So as we said, the season kind of peters out and Ipswich are relegated. Obviously, you've just scored 19 goals the previous season. When the relegation was confirmed, you're a proven Premier League striker now. So what's your thought process? Because presumably you know that your agent's going to be approached for other people to come and sign you. What was your thought process?
As happened, that didn't happen. So I don't know. I don't remember being happy, of course. But you know, when a club gets relegated, everyone's job's on the line, especially if you haven't done it the season before. And I can honestly say that I wasn't as successful that season as I was the year before, along with the rest of the squad, staff as well. That's why we got relegated. So everything's up in the air, really. You're not really sure what's going to happen. If I'm honest with you, you're not sure if there's going to be a new manager. You're not sure if you're going to be playing the season after. You don't know. You know, the uncertainty probably is the hardest thing to deal with. So
Ipswich go down. Strangely, they get into Europe again from the Fair Play League.
That's right, yeah.
You score your last goal against Avenir Began. Who are they?
Yeah.
But by this point, it's fairly clear that all those signings we talked about, that the finances were a little bit up the Swanee. And obviously in these situations, the best players get picked off straight away. When did you hear of the Sunderland interest, and how did that all play out?
Again, it wasn't through my agent.
No?
So, you know, no, we got a phone call off George. I think it was on deadline day, late August. I don't remember what time it was in the day, but it was that time. And the same thing, you know, generally if the manager calls you and said they've accepted a bid, that means it's time to go. So I went up to talk to Sunderland, and that was it. And a new chapter in my football career happened. And in the first 3 or 4 months of there, I had 3-4 managers then. With Peter Reid, first of all, then Howard Wilkinson, and then Mick, who was great, stabilised the club and got the club back promoted again to the Championship.
We'll come on to Mick.
Relegated and promoted.
Come on to Mick in a second, Marcus. When you look back at all that happened, it feels like you did about 10 years worth of football in 2.5 years at Ipswich, doesn't it? From arriving a playoff, winning a playoff, to rising up to the Premier League, to finishing 5th, to getting relegated again, to going into administration, to leaving. It just seems a weird existence for that for that period.
Yeah, it is, and like I say, it's part of being a footballer. That's that's how it happens. You can be at the top at one stage, at the bottom, and you have to have a level head and be able to think straight if you can. Um, and there was times I couldn't. There's times you question your own ability. There's times you question the moves you've done. That's just part of being it, and you got to try sometimes work out yourself. And luckily, I did.
Great stuff. Okay, so obviously Mick McCarthy. Now I've heard you talk very well of Mick McCarthy. Obviously, you're probably
Yep.
aware of the back and forth at the moment with Mick and the Ipswich supporters and such and such.
No, I'm not. I'm not actually, if I'm honest. So
No, the contract's expiring at the end of the season, and there's
right.
Mick has the odd dig, and the fans have the odd dig back, and they've both been digging and digging for a while now, and it's got a little bit uncomfortable. Just from inside the dressing room, what can you tell us about Mick? Because I know you speak very highly of him.
Mick's an honest guy, and he's one of the managers that tells you what he thinks. He's fair. Sometimes you might not want to hear what he has to say because it hurt you. But he's honest with you and he's fair with you. And on the flip side of it, he'll give you confidence and encouragement as well. So I think, and I've learned a lot from that. The fairer you can be, the straighter you can be, straight talking. I think players appreciate it more over my experience of being a coach, especially. And that's what we try to be where we're at, if I'm honest with you. If people don't like what we have to say, it won't be said publicly, it won't be said in the dressing room. Sometimes it'll be a one-on-one. If you want to have a chat and you want to hear what I really have to say, then that's fine. And it might be good, it might be bad, as long as you're open-minded to that. And Mick was exactly like that. How he comes across on the media, straight talking, honest, no slyness about him, no ego about him, very humble. That's how he is with the dressing room and with players and with staff. And that's why I always have the utmost respect for the guy.
When you look at Ipswich now, obviously you had such great times there, and it's kind of 16 years now in the Championship, and not too much in the way of looking like they're going to get anywhere back near the Premier League. You would have been playing in front of 20,000 attendances, and they've dropped down. How do you look upon Ipswich from the outside? Is it just somewhere that you worked, or do you kind of look out and see how they're doing?
Of course, I look out to see how they're doing. Not religiously every game, but I'll keep an eye on it. So yeah, it's a club that I played at. It's a club that gave me the opportunity to play in the Premier League. So yeah, I do keep an eye on it, but obviously I have a job to do, and sometimes to try and keep an eye on everyone's results when there's your results for your club you're working for at the moment are really important. It kind of takes over. You're in your own little bubble. So when I do come out of that bubble, sometimes I do look out for old clubs. That's for sure.
Great stuff. Just to finish off, Marcus, you've been great, giving us so much time. Can I just throw some names at you and just get your instant, kind of summing up? Yeah.
Yeah.
George Burley.
Great. Club legend.
Really instant. Matt Holland.
Love him. Mr. Ipswich.
Finidi George.
Needy.
Did you play in that Derby game where he broke the Opta world record for the best performance ever?
No, I did. I might have done. I don't remember. Finidi. What a nice guy. I don't think we've seen the best of him.
Steve Bruce.
Steve Bruce. Again, pretty honest, like Mick was at times. I've been fallings out with Steve after games and stuff like that, but on a Monday morning he forgot about it and we got on like nothing happened. So yeah, I quite like Steve.
Herman Hreiderson.
Herman, great, a nutter. What a good guy though.
Dale Roberts.
Dale. What do I say about Dale?
It's just that
great assistant manager.
That footage when it sends it, knowing that he's gone as well. When Rooster scores and you see Burley and Dale Roberts hugging, it always gets me. Jim Magilton?
Jim, passionate, um, um, wears his heart on his sleeve. Technically great. I had a great connection with him on the pitch. That's for sure. When he got the ball, I knew he knew where I was going to be. I knew where he was thinking of putting the ball.
Darryl Clark?
Darryl Clark, what a manager! Passionate, tactically aware, very young, got a bright future.
Marcus, thank you so much. Obviously, thank you for what you did for the club and such back in the day. If this doesn't seem too stalkery, Belster Brook Hotel, little spotty teenager who used to bring you a room service.
Right, that you?
It's me. If that doesn't seem too stalkery, yeah. How long were you staying there for?
I don't know. It would have been intermittently. It would have been.
Are you looking for a house?
Waiting for it to move house. Yeah. Nice house. Nice hotel. I remember seeing Alan Brazil and Paul there a couple of times.
Oh yeah. I wonder which part of the hotel Alan Brazil would have been in. Like that.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you so much for coming on, and good luck with everything for Bristol Rovers.
Thank you very much, Ben. Top man.
Cool.
Thank you.
Great stuff.